Council members, if you would go to your separate, if you go to page 87, we're going to take items 87 through 89 together. I'm going to read them together. If necessary, we will vote on them separately. Council members, I know this is a universal or parish-wide issue, so if you run out of time and you're asking questions that I identify are germane to the topic, and are relevant for our constituents to hear, I'll give you more time, so don't rush. This is an important issue, and so those who may need to come up and answer questions, we need to hear from them in a timely fashion. However, we don't want to rush, so we want to hear all the information. Item 87, amending Resolution 56001 adopted November 10th, 2021 in order to adopt a new fee schedule for dumping at the East Barons Parish North landfill site and providing for other matters related thereto, effective January 1, 2023 by the Environmental Services Director. Item 88, awarding the contract for solid waste and recycling collection and recycling processing services to the selected vendor BFI Waste Services LLC, doing business as Republic Services of Baton Rouge, and authorize the mayor president to execute a contract for a 10-year term by Environmental Services Director. Item 89, award the contract of out-of-car collection services to the selected vendor Richards Disposal Incorporated, and authorizing the mayor president to execute the contract for a 10-year term by the Environmental Services Director. Ladies and gentlemen, I have before me a fact sheet, and it seems as if though we have two options. One option is to keep what we have at twice a week and go up $13 to $35.23, or to save the citizens at least $7 by going to once a week at $28.97. Now, I do think it's important before we have the public hearing, if there's information that needs to be explained, please come up and explain that now before we have the public hearing, because I'd rather you explain information so that when citizens or anyone who wants to come up and speak on the item, they'll have the information prior to them speaking. So does anybody need to come up and say anything about this current contract? Fred?
Thank you, Chairman and members of the council. I just wanted to emphasize just a few items that I think are important to the public. You know, I know there's a lot of discussions about how this process took place. I think it's important for them to also know that we did go through a process and select a consultant to help us prepare the RFP for this garbage collection contract. We thought that was important. We wanted to have the best group of people, and that was Burns and McConnell engineering group, who helped prepare the RFP for us in that process. It was also important that we also have some committees to be in part of that process. The mayor wanted to be sure that we had people involved in the decision making, looking at what the proposals were coming in at, and also putting their input into that. And we also had a committee that was also developed. And those committee members, some of them were Donna Collins Lewis, Ed Lulinski, I think Ted Stevens, Trey Godfrey, and Pat LaDuff, and and Mr. Hill was also one of those members of the committee in that process. We wanted to try to get the best proposal we could put together. That's why we looked at a group to help us, and we were helping facilitate the information that was going back to them back and forth. And the RP was finally prepared, and it was done by the end of April of this year. And it was prepared, and then we actually went out to seek proposals, which we did. We also had proposals that came back. None of them came back for out-of-cart or trash pickup in regards to the service, which was very interesting, because we thought we would have, and we broke it out to various processes, but also looked at various areas to be able to pick up so we could have more people to get involved in the process. That was something that we want. The more competition, the better the price. No one submitted at that point for the trash pickup. That was a concern to us, because we can't have garbage without having trash or recycling. So those are the things that we looked at. We put another proposal together to address that. Tried to open it up as much as we could, and were able to get a successful bidder at that time, which is Richards Disposal. It was a successful proposal, and we met and did do the negotiations both with Republic and also with Richards Disposal. That was completed sometime in late June or July. At this point, August was when we actually had the final review with the out-of-cart service for trash pickup. So that's where we were, at least at this point. We were doing the negotiations, and I think at some point we decided to be sure that the council was involved in some of the process. We wanted to at least let you know what those numbers were at this point, and we provided the data to the council through a process and got some input, and certainly a lot of your input was very important because it certainly makes a reflection on what we were trying to do from the service for the Baton Rouge area. With that, I guess we're here today, looking at the two proposals, and I did prepare a fact sheet to give to each one of the council members there, because there are a lot of questions, and I can't deny that, but I think we followed the process. We had competitors who also submitted the bids, and we were also involved in the negotiation. And when I don't like using RFPs to a point where people say you didn't bid. The RFP is a bid, but you go through a negotiation. So we did take the process, we did follow the process, and I think that process worked out very well from our standpoint. But the type of service in this fact sheet that I provided to you also, on the twice a week garbage, once a week recycling, and once a week OCD, which is out of cart per residence. The service for the actual garbage is $16.53, which will be handled through Republic. The once a week recycling is $6, and that will also be handled through Republic. The once a week with the trash pickup is for Richard's Disposal, and it was at $7.50. We do have a disposal that we have to deal with. Of the material that comes in. It's at the landfill, and as you well know, landfills are not cheap, and they do cost money to help keep them functioning and still have to meet all the requirements required by the federal government, and also landfill tipping fees, which also in it, which sets up a rate around $3.48. The administrative fee has to handle all the things that we have to deal with on a daily basis, dealing with garbage collection, and there are many things that we do, but it's not unreasonable at that point for $1.39. And the new card expense was at 36 cents, which totaled around $35.23 for twice a week garbage service. I realize the numbers that we had on the sheet were a little high, but that was because we wanted to give you what the worst case scenario. But at this point, we feel very comfortable with these numbers at this point. And as you see, the cart cost will be split between Republic and the city parish. Also, the disposal administrative is about 133,000 households that we're dealing with for that garbage service. The once a week service, garbage, and once a week recycling, and once a week trash pickup per resident, it's at $11 that we're dealing with for at this point, which is Republic. We will also be dealing with the recycling, which is once a week, which is at $6. And the once a week trash pickup, which is with Richard, is $7.50. The administrative fee is about $1.02, and the new card expense is around 92 cents for a total of $28.97. I think what we're just trying to get to make sure people know that we did follow a process. It was a good process. And we did do our due diligence of doing negotiations, and I realized that the cost is not what people expected it to be, but it certainly, we did everything we can with the understanding that we did recommend the once a week garbage service because it was the least expensive. And we also know that many people in this parish will struggle to pay those fees, and we wanted to try to at least reduce it to the least amount we could and still provide a service that's needed for our parish and keep our parish healthy and clean, that's for sure. With that, at this point, that's what we have. I'm going to ask Rick if he can clean up some of the things that or addition things he may want to include, but I think overall, the recommendations we're doing, we would hope we could get council support in regards and move forward with this program, because it is important to our community, and we also want to make sure that we hold the contractor accountable, getting things done where it needs to be done by getting the equipment ordered as quickly as possible. Rick?
Thank you, Rick Spear, Director of Environmental Services. Fred did a great job of explaining the process and what's in the fees. The only thing I wanted to add is for you'll see expenses, and these are expenses for the once a week is $28.97, but the actual proposed tipping fee for the service will be $28.50. And that is because there's a couple of months, 2 months, that's under the existing contract, and those costs are able to lower some of the costs for the rest of the 10 months. That's why there's a 47-cent difference. We also estimated, because we're going to once a week, about maybe 50,000 residents would have a second cart, because they do the second drop, and you have the second pickup, and they put the cart out. Don't know how much they put into it, but that's included into this budget process, and that's at $7 a month for the second cart. And it's not just, we're not going to limit it like we do now. We limit it to one 64-gallon cart. The second cart will be the same size cart, 96-gallon. If they want a third cart and pay for the third cart, it's for each additional cart that they want to use. So we're not going to limit it just one extra cart for the people that desire to have additional carts. And I know there's some out there. So I think that's all I wanted to add to what Fred is saying. I'm going to introduce Sharon Mann. Everybody knows she's the General Manager for Republic.
Hey, Councilman, thank you for having us. I've spoke to several of y'all. I want to introduce my team. I've got Paul Denton here, Steve Smith, Willie Prater, Ed Lee, Kenny Paylett, and Chad Redlinger. I couldn't do what I do every day without them. I can tell you they definitely have my back, and they definitely have the city's back too. I guess we'll take questions now.
No. We're not going to have any questions. We're going to allow the public. We're going to have a public hearing first. Go ahead.
I also would like to introduce Mr. Alvin Richard for Richard's Disposal and come up and say hi.
Good evening, council members. I apologize for coming late, but had a lot of inclement weather getting here. My name is Alvin Richard Jr. I've been working here in Baton Rouge for the last 16 years for you. And it's a pleasure coming back to try to get this new contract to see if we can move forward with serving the citizens of Baton Rouge again. And appreciate us being here today. Thank you.
Thank you. First, we'll hear from Jolene Johnson.
Hi. My name is Jolene Johnson. I work with Waste Pro. And I just wanted to, on item number 88, I wanted to clarify in the letter from Mr. Spear, it says that their proposals were received from 3 firms, and that is not the case. We did not submit a proposal. We submitted a letter of no bid, and that isn't a proposal. So I just wanted to clarify that to make sure that everybody understood that, because in our letter, we explained that the decision to pass on this opportunity was due to the following reasons. We believe the RFP requirements did not allow all proposers an even field. The following 3 items were flagged as weaknesses in this opportunity, and they made us realize that this opportunity would be difficult to capture. 1, by not requiring new equipment, the current contractor has an advantage by not having the capital outlay of all the new equipment. 2, by not equalizing the scoring for contractors that would have the expense of building a new CNG station, the current contractor has an advantage. And 3, by not splitting the service area into more manageable sections, the city parish is severely limiting the contractor pool and limiting your choice. So I just wanted to, and here's some copies for y'all. I just wanted to clarify that because this is public record, and that is what happened. We did not submit a proposal on an 88. And then am I to speak on 89 right now too?
Sure.
Or
You can, yeah.
okay. On 89, I would like to say we did submit a proposal for the outer cart, but it is our understanding that we were the only proposer that submitted a proposal for all 3 sections when the city parish broke it up into 3 sections. And so we are we have our office, our business is here in the city of Baton Rouge over on North Flannery. And we're just kind of we don't understand why we weren't even spoken to or talked to about the one section that the other contractor, Richards Disposal, did not bid on. So as far as item number 88, we would like to ask that you not award the contract and, utilize your extension for one more year and make an even playing field and put out a new RFP for that service. And then on 89 for the out of cart, we would like to table that and have the opportunity to, because we were the only ones that submitted a proposal for the one large section, to enter into negotiations with the city parish for that. Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Woody Jenkins.
Mr. Pro Tem, members of the council, it's great to see you all. Thank you for this chance. And I want to thank you on behalf of all of our citizens for your hard work this year. I know that's a thankless job, and you put a lot of effort into it. I'm here in my capacity as chairman of the Republican Party of East Baton Rouge Parish to express our strong opposition to this proposal. We really dislike the idea of going to once a week, and we think it proposes health hazards, safety hazards, especially in more dense areas, inner city, where I live in North Baton Rouge. People who maybe have one or two people in the house, or they live in a large lot or a rural area, may not have as many problems. But when you have larger families and when you're more dense populations and you have garbage sitting around for a week, this is a problem. We want to have a great city. We want to have a wonderful city. We want to make everything better. We don't want to go down in our quality, and I think that's what's happening. This last lady who testified, I think, shut down the meeting as far as I'm concerned. If we haven't considered or made this bid so tight that someone like this couldn't participate, that's deeply concerning to me. So I think we would favor rebidding this, having a new RFP, and let's don't go down in our quality in Baton Rouge. Let's always go up. Let's make it better. But making half the service and half the quantity of garbage, actually, if you read the proposal, and increasing the fee, no, this doesn't work, and I don't think it works for most people. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak on items 87 through 89? If you come up, please state your name and address for the record, and please be reminded you have 3 minutes to speak. If there's no one else coming, okay.
I forgot something.
You forgot something? Well, you're out of time.
Oh, I'm out.
Come on.
I just wanted to say on number 89, if you're not going to table it, we've done a public records request, and we would like to know what the next step is into protest. So if someone could answer that for me.
All right, we'll get an answer for you. Come on, ma'am. And the person who has the answer for that question, be coming next, please.
Hi, Tanya Jones, 4525 Raleigh Drive. I oppose this new bid. I think we can do better. I think we deserve better. Going down in quality of service is just not the answer. And the price going up, nothing makes sense to me. And I've went to several meetings about the garbage carts having the way they was damaging them. And it was like, oh, just order another one. Let's see where we can cut down costs on their end. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on, Chris. Yeah, Chris getting ready to answer that question now.
Hi, thank you. Chris Goranson, Purchasing Director. So if I address the first question in regards to the protest is a period after which we have decided to award the contract. Obviously, we make a recommendation to the Metro Council. The Metro Council gives us the authorization to proceed. So my question would be, ultimately, what are we protesting? And based on the merits of the protest would dictate how we handle that. But in all public purchasing, everybody has an opportunity to protest. I wish we had addressed any concerns around the scope. There is a period for questions and inquiries. Our goal is always to be inclusive, and if we can amend an existing RFP or a bid out there at that time.
All right, thank you. Come on, sir. State your name and address for the record, and then.
Okay. I'm Charles Thomas. I live at 7081 Modesto Avenue. right here in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And I'm representing our Neighborhood Homeowners Association. We have about 180 plus homeowners in there. We've discussed this and we've talked about it. We think it's a bad deal when we're going to go to from 2 to 1. As a matter of fact, I was just hearing the proposals and what's going on. They said they think it's a very good contract. When it's a good contract, that means it's good for the people. I can't see why we're going to come from 2 pickups a week down to 1 and then still pay more for that. So I'm like, what I heard, with everything he said, we think we need to send this thing back and let us renegotiate. I think that the council has power in renegotiating. If anything, we won't go down. And if anything, I expect y'all should have all of our interests in heart because we're going to be paying the money. Whatever y'all decide, we're going to pay it. And as a constituent, I mean, I just don't want to pay more money for less service. That just doesn't sound good to me at all. And my last statement is that, where I stay at, we have a lot of people love to cook. We do jambalaya, we do crawfish, and I cannot see sitting for a whole week in somebody's yard that we want to attract rodents or whatever else is bad. And my last statement is we have enough trash already in Baton Rouge. I don't want to see us gain any more. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on the item? Anyone else? Are you getting up to come and speak on the item, Mr. Corson? Okay. You're not speaking? Okay. We're going to go to council now. Council members. Councilmember Noel.
All right. So a couple of things I want to clarify and discuss. And, we've all been having discussions about this. And Fred or Rick, I think if y'all could speak a little bit to, y'all know I was asking specifically about recycling. So I think a lot of us have an appreciation for the increases in costs that we've seen across the board when it comes to services and goods with inflation that we've been seeing. I know those of you who own businesses, you've seen it in having to increase salaries and pay for employees, and certainly fuel costs and everything that fuel costs touch, and so I don't think anybody was anticipating not seeing increases. A lot of times, and we hear a lot, and I understand that hey, we're having less service for more money. And while that's true, the reality is you could keep status quo service, and that is an option here, and that's going to be for even more money, and that is an option, and it's a realistic one. What I was trying to find out and discuss, and I'm getting those answers, and I appreciate y'all working on it. My question was specifically about recycling. We know a majority of the people in the parish do not recycle. I think it's about a 40% participation rate. So my first option was to say, well, if you don't recycle, can you just not pay for it? And those who want to recycle pay for it. And the thought, and I've had people address this to me, and I understand it. They say, well, if I don't want to recycle, I don't necessarily want to subsidize somebody else's desire to do so. So I sent that, and I think, Rick, if you'd like to come and explain what that would look like, and I think you gave a valid answer, and I appreciate your work on that, because I had a lot of people asking about it. So if you could speak to that a little bit.
Sure. We did an analysis for you. If we just take the amount of dollars that is spread out through the 133,000 residents, which is $6, and I don't have the exact numbers in here, but if we just charge that straight to the recycling community only, we would look at recycling going up almost 2.5 times for that cost. That's what we would have to propose on that. And with that 2.5 times increase, just from $6 to well over $15 per person, I would expect that, people that are recycling, so why would I do that? Why don't I just get a second cart and only pay garbage in a second cart? And so that increases our amount of tonnage going to landfill. We're approaching the end of the landfill life, and that would just shorten that time frame even more so. So we also, then I looked at, well, how about if we just increase the recycling a little bit and only charge it just to the recyclers and not the people picking up garbage? And necessarily, we would have to increase the charges on garbage also, for the once a week. And I forget the numbers, it's like $13.50 that would have to increase that price into it. So, right now we have a very, I consider a successful recycling program. It's what we call is an opt-in program. Everybody pays, yes, but everybody has the ability to join at any time they want to. All they have to do is call and ask for a recycling cart, and then they're a recycler. So we're not excluding anybody, and we want to encourage everybody to get a recycling cart. I suspect, some people who don't recycle, they're putting their boxes in their garbage cart. Well, if you get a recycling cart and just put your boxes in the recycling cart, that's going to reduce the amount of garbage going in there, increasing the tonnage going to the recycling, which is a good thing for the city parish.
Okay. So do you anticipate an increase in this scenario if we do once a week? If that's what we go with, would you anticipate an increase in contamination in the recycling because people are going to start utilizing the recycling bin to put trash in when they're overflowing?
So
I guess and I don't mean to cut you off. My question is, has that been considered as part of the process when y'all are looking at the contract?
Yes, and I was about to say I'm a member of the Municipal Waste Management Association, which is a subset of the Conference of Mayors, and so I talked to my peers across the nation, to get some feedback on when they did those things. They do see a period of time where people the contamination may go up a little bit, but it goes back to normal. And that's the great thing about having the opt-in, where communities like Cleveland had, everybody get a cart and be a recycler. They had 80% contamination, which is, and it shut down their program. We're running about 20%, which is, well below national average, because of the opt-in service. So, but, again, I created a new recycling coordinator position because I want to increase recycling, want to improve our recycling process. And, and I'm looking to get grants to try to reach out and increase that participation.
Okay. All right, Ms. Mann, I'd like to ask you about, we talked a little bit about the new trucks that are coming in. This is important to me. One of the big issues that I see, I think it's happening all over the parish, but certainly in my area, is the trucks, as they're driving around, they're causing litter. You're seeing it fly out of the trucks. And it's from people not bagging their trash, and I understand they're supposed to, and but specifically in my district, because I have the landfill in my district, and on 61, anywhere around there, because there's such a high concentration of the trucks, I think they leave there, less weight, and a little bit that's left, and the wind's hitting it and picking it up, and it's a constant issue. So to that, part of this contract is requiring the new trucks, which you showed us, that have a side load that is going to eliminate that. What is your timeline on ordering those? What are you looking at as far as how long that's going to take? I know you told us quite clearly you're waiting on the approval of this contract to send that out, so that us passing this, as soon as we pass this, it starts. But what are you looking at a timeline to receive them and put them in place? Because I know there's been across multiple industries, supply chain issues. What's the realistic timeline on those?
So realistically, it's about 12 to 14 months. And we're going to start getting some in at the end of this year or next year. And through the following year, we'll be at 100%.
Okay. So end of 24, 100%?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. How about, are we looking at having that is for, with the recycling trucks too? Is that a possibility? Is that gonna be-
Absolutely. We're
Okay.
going to completely automate recycling as well.
Okay. And can you speak a little bit to, for those who aren't aware of what the trucks are going to do and how they're going to work?
Yes. So just like I showed y'all, the arm is a much better arm on the side of the truck. It keeps the cart in the position. This is one of the arms that McNeilus is doing, they're going to allow for us to try this out. But the cart can be in any position, whether it's frontwards or backwards, it will still lift it. The good part about the litter control is when it's lifted, the cart's going to go completely inside of the truck. And then if it's too heavy, when it gets to the top, the grabber will grab it again so that the cart won't fall in, and then it comes back and it comes back down and puts it in the same spot. Just like I showed y'all, the arm itself does not move from side to side. It stays in the position and it just goes up the rails.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Dunn.
Let the record reflect that I'm going to abstain from this item. We've done business with Republic Service in the past, but correct me if I'm wrong, Ashley, I still want to make comment. I think I'm well within my right.
Yeah. So long as you give the reason for your abstention, you're allowed to make comments.
Okay. And I've been advised by my attorneys and the parish attorneys to not vote on the item. So that's the reason I'm abstaining. However, I'm adamantly against going from 1 day a week, from 2 days a week to 1 day a week. I think, as I've explained to the administration, as I've explained to my colleagues, as I've explained to Republic Service, I don't see how anybody can digest a decrease in service and an increase in price. There's no denying that the cost of business today has increased from yesterday or pre-COVID. Fuel costs, supply chain, all of those things, I get that. I think the conversation should be surrounding maintaining the service that we have and see what value or what price we can get that service at for those 2 days a week. So I would encourage you to do that and get back to the drawing board to do that. My logic on the 2 days a week, as everybody knows, from time to time, whether it be weather, whether it be the distance from the landfill, whether it be a truck broke down, typically you may get missed on your first day. Well, it's not a big problem because, okay, you missed me on Monday, you can catch me on Wednesday. You missed me on Tuesday, you can catch me on Thursday, no problem. Well, if you don't have another option that week, then you have all that garbage and that trash remaining for 2 weeks. So I think we need to look at that. Couple of questions I have, things that have been said, and just try to get truth and dispel some of these myths that are out there. I need some of you guys to address some of these issues. The first one, I've heard conflicting information. Is there an extension available? Some people said there's a 3-year extension available. Some people that said there's not. Who can speak to that? An extension of the current contract is what I'm referencing.
Yes, sir. The current contract has a 6-month extension that it can be utilized for transition period between if we're changing contract. So if we award a contract, there is no transition period on the existing contract. So that's strictly what it's for. So, but we are having a transition period. May I address that? Or
So no, I'm speaking to an extension of the current service. Is that available to us or not?
Like I said, there is a 6-month transition.
Not
period
transition. Is there an extension of the current contract available to us?
That's what I'm talking about. That 6-month transition extension is available, and it's if no contract is awarded. Okay. Once a contract is awarded, that is not able to be executed.
So we cannot award a contract tonight and extend the current contract for 6 months? That's a yes or no?
Yes, I guess.
Okay, thank you. Also,
sound kind of shaky in your answer now. Yeah. We need a firm.
We need to be sure.
Yeah.
Are you sure, Rick?
If you award the contract, there is no 6-month.
No, my question was if we do not award the contract tonight, can we extend the current contract for 6 months?
Only if no contract is awarded.
Okay.
Once a contract is awarded, that transition extension.
Chris, you want to clarify?
May I help out just a little bit? So our contract has run its term. It is a service contract. We are always allowed to negotiate in good faith. Now, that would require us obviously to come back to the council. It would be a significant investment, but obviously we only have one choice. So I think what Rick's trying to reference is to ensure we have continuity of service to our citizens. In the event we were to go to a different vendor, they are obligated to support us for 6 months while we would convert that transition, because it would be detrimental if the contract terminated, for instance, 12/31. And
But what if we don't award the contract? Are they still obligated to service us for 6 months?
I don't believe that is how the contract is written, but I do believe that they would, entertain negotiating in good faith. I don't believe as a Fortune 100 company.
Can we
they're
get some
looking to
clarity
advance.
on that, some definite clarity on that before we leave here?
I know the contract has expired. Whether they choose to negotiate
Take
with
your
us or
time. I'm
not.
gonna give you more time. Take your time.
Whether they choose to negotiate with us is up to them and their attorneys, and obviously it would require me to come back and get approval of it.
Let me say this. We stated this on some items last night. We have an issue with some items with this tonight. And the public has expressed this. A lot of items come before us and it's an emergency. When you're looking at fees and rates increase and changing in services, we would like the courtesy of getting that information so we can vet it, so we can get it to the public and we can answer the public's questions. I understand there was an RFP due in April or finalized in April, but there are a lot of questions, whether it's entertaining a 5-year agreement, whether it's looking at what Brandon was talking about with the recycling, a lot of things that we didn't have an opportunity to engage in that conversation. So I think whether it's 6 months, whether it's a year, I think, an extension to have that further dialogue will give us more clarity and give us more information to be able to make an informed decision. So that's where I'm coming from on that. And this is a question directed to Republic, or maybe Rick and Fred can answer this question. A constituent asked me specifically to talk about how you arrived at these numbers. What was the formula? How did you get to these numbers?
Let me just say, when we provided this sheet, this was through the negotiations with the firm. We asked about the original proposal cost that they submitted. We looked at other places where these services were being provided, and we wanted to try to get down to the lowest reasonable cost for garbage pickup, the recycling part, and all that. So those are the things that we do.
But just kind of the formula. What went into this pricing? How did we arrive at these numbers? Can you explain that?
I was not entirely a part of the negotiation. I probably can ask Rick some of that part. Yes, sir.
So we received the proposal in, and we had one response. That we did get 3 proposals on the day of the submittal. Only one was responsive, and the committee reviewed that responsive proposal.
So Rick, they gave you some numbers, and you accepted those numbers, or did we negotiate? Did we counter offer?
Yes, we went in and negotiated the numbers that we have arrived for the once a week contract. On the sheet that we gave you, you'll see for the garbage, that is the proposed number that they have given us, because under good faith, we were negotiating, trying to get the most cost-effective prices down so we can have a reasonable fee for
a formula. Can that be presented?
I don't know what kind of formula you're talking about on that, because they gave us a price and we negotiated, and it talked about, well, we're going to buy the carts. The city parish is going to continue buying the carts. Republic's going to do the maintenance and distribution of the carts, which we think will be an improvement. We had some, that there's going to be a call center set up, so we reduce that service, and Republic gave us a reduction in price. So I don't know if there's not a formula, it's just a give and take during negotiations. Can you do better? Can we do, what can...
Okay, thank you. Let me close with this so I don't take up any more time. I know other people have to speak. in those negotiations, and in the negotiation, a good negotiator is looking for a win-win. Want both parties to leave away from the table with a win, not a win-loss. Want both parties to get a win-win. In my opinion, this is not a win-win. I do think the city parish is sensitive to the rising cost of doing business and would like to address that so the vendors could be profitable. We don't want them not to be profitable. But I also think the current vendor, is sensitive to the challenges that we face and our citizens face with high rising costs and inflation and things of that nature. I think we can make a better effort at getting a win-win for the citizens of East Baton Rouge Parish than what's being presented here today, and I'll rest with that.
Councilmember Hurst.
Hey, so I've probably been the thorn in the side on the 1 day a week along with Cleve since it started. One thing I don't think we take into account is how we have a huge initiative where we're spending millions of dollars through ARP funds and other city funds to fight blight. And when you go to urban areas that we're trying to clean up, we talk about the education process of using lots. So I'll give you all a little history. I rode around with Republic Waste around my district so they could tell me what they were responsible for, what Reginald Broomfield was responsible for, and what Rick Spear and Rachel Lambert were responsible for, because it's 3 different areas: environmental, development, and maintenance. And they confused the heck out of me that day to determine what group would pick up what pile of trash. So we talk about an education window of 3 to 6 months. Not going to happen. I've been in the council for a year, and I'm still trying to figure some of these piles out. The biggest thing that I saw was that the majority of these vacant lots had trash piled up to the top. We did a heavy job of lifting those trash piles out of Zion City, and they have not been restored to that magnitude since then. The neighborhood has done very well. But by reducing down from 2 days a week to 1 day a week, I guarantee you nobody's going to sit stinky trash in their house for 7 to 10 days or whatever, because if you miss it, it's another week, right? So what's going to end up happening is that these piles of trash are going to start piling back up on those vacant lots because they don't want these piles of trash in front of their homes. The one thing I found out throughout that process is that if there's no water meter there, that means Republic Waste will not pick that trash up because, as you said, there's a fee on there that allows the water company to process the bill on behalf of Republic Waste in the city of Baton Rouge. So the average citizen does not know that. So we end up with more piles of blight, trash, and I think we're not looking at, we talked about multiple families that have multiple kids, and I don't really need to comment on this, so you grabbing the mic, I'm just going to say my little speech. But you have people with 40% of the parish does 2 days a week. My personal experience is 2 days a week I put out 2 carts, 1 day a week I put out about 1 cart. Y'all, I'm just reiterating what a lot of y'all have already said because I've had these exact same conversations with Mr. Rayford. If I have a crawfish boil on Saturday night and my trash does not get picked up until next Friday, somebody made a joke about throwing it in a dumpster, so now we're encouraging illegal dumping. That's not what we're going to do as city councilmen, as police officers, as anybody else. We're not going to encourage crime because we don't want to go 2 days a week. The other part about it is I heard about the committee that you did. Next time you have any type of committee, make sure you talk to each council member and ask them to provide one person from their district, because each different district is different. And with the different districts, we represent a different mindset and subset of people in the community that add a diverse approach to the conversation and decision making that happens within DPW. I heard the names that you did. You named BRAF, BRAC, YWCA, all the people that are already making the decisions for the city that can afford the $35. They could afford trash if it was $72 a month. That's not representing the average citizen that can't afford that. Or that says, I can't afford it, but I'd rather make that sacrifice and have a 30 community. So make sure you get one member from each council district to be a part of those boards so that we can have a voice even if we're not present, or allow us the opportunity to sit on those boards so that we have direct communication back with our constituents. And I don't know what I will tell you this. It was a little disturbing about the Waste Pro piece. And I want to understand if she could come back up to the mic and just restate the part where you were not acknowledged. And I want somebody else, because Kristen answered the question directly. What piece did you not get acknowledged on in the bid?
On 89 for the outer cart, we were the only proposal. There was two proposals, Richards and Waste Pro, and we bid each section. There were 3 sections. And it's our understanding Richards only bid 2. And yet we were never talked to about the one that wasn't bid on, but yet Richards is being awarded the whole contract for all 3 sections.
Can somebody answer why they were not acknowledged?
Their price was, as I recall, about 40% higher than Richards on their proposal.
But if Richard did bid on
and as I recall, they bid on one, and the form they submitted was for one area of the 3 areas. That's the way that we also looked at it. So the committee, the review committee, is the one authorized us to go into negotiations with Richard. And I negotiated with Richards to pick up all 3 of the areas, because I didn't feel that one part of the parish should pay a lot more than everybody else did. And that's what would have happened if we just awarded it without negotiation. So that's why we ended up with that negotiation. But it was from a recommendation from the review committee. I won't say selection committee, that's a recommendation from them.
Sometimes I know these things.
Okay, and I will tell you, if it doesn't get deferred tonight, then I'm gonna make a substitute. I'll make an amendment from the floor that we adopt the 2 days a week in the contract and not the 1. And I don't know if the parish attorney or somebody said that we can't make the amendment and accept it.
Wait. You don't have to make an amendment. Just make a motion.
I'll make them.
Say the number
That's
on your
88,
fact
right?
sheet.
Oh, okay. Hold on.
Right in your hand.
Yep. So I make a motion to approve the contract at $35 rate for 2 days a week, because I can't again see.
Wait. That's your motion.
I'm gonna shut up. I know what you're gonna do.
That's your motion.
Yeah.
Is there a second? I'm gonna come back to you, but I want to get the motion clear.
Yeah.
Your motion is $35.23 for twice a week. Is there a second for? I'll second that item. All right. Now go back to what you're saying.
No, I'm just saying. My final thing is that I tell people I'm in sales for a living. I can't sell dog food I won't eat myself. And I can't eat this dog food. I can't sell constituents to pay more and get less. And that's the reason I made that motion. And so I did the math, and maybe I'm wrong on it because the numbers have changed based on what I use, but it's about $1 addition, about $2 a week additional to make sure we have better service. And those $2 a week will ensure that blight does not build and grow in Baton Rouge. So I'm asking my colleagues to join in and support.
Mr.
right.
Chairman,
Go ahead.
I just want to respond about some of the questions brought up about the once a week and twice a week. And certainly, it was our goals and objectives to try to keep the cost down as low as possible, because the many people that I have talked to and also other people have relayed that cost was an issue to them, and certainly we wanted to try to keep the cost as low as possible. And once a week service was one of those ways to do it. I know there are going to be people who don't like the once a week and need the twice a week. In reality, that's why we have the numbers here set up for the once a week or the twice a week. There are many times that we believe that trying to keep for the fixed income people and also the low income people, the people who can't afford it, we wanted to be sure they had an option to do so. So I just want to be sure that if the council decides to do it twice a week, well, that will be something we'll have to go back and look at to do that. But at this point, the contract we have that's here for discussion is on a once a week service.
Point of clarity. And it's a friendly question. If the contract is only once, why do we have this that says we have an option for twice?
I just wanted to have the facts and the numbers out there And because there have been a lot of questions about that, and we wanted to at least let them know what those costs were directly to that, to either the once a week or the twice a week service.
So
I have a point of clarity also, if I may.
Yeah.
Let me have the parish attorney. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's
Yes,
what I said a
so
minute.
my understanding was the approval of this contract tonight, but we still had to bring back the actual fees and what we selected in January.
Yeah, the fee would come back, whatever is recommended would come back with the fees associated in the ordinance in January. That's correct.
So what is recommended tonight, which could be either or only what is on this item here?
The contract as it stands right now, what's part of this packet is for once a week.
Trust me.
Is for once a week service. That was what we were considering, and if it was going to get amended, then we chatted with the parish attorney. You may want to make sure he verifies the ultimate decision, but we could not amend the contract at this point. We could come back later to do so, if that was the choice of the council to do that.
Ashley.
I want to hear Lisa or Andy's opinion on it, but I think the motion is in order to award the contract. The agenda item doesn't state how many days a week the pickup is going to be, but if they approve it at 2 days a week, if that's the motion, and that offer is on the table between the two parties, it seems to me that that's a motion that's in order. But
so two things to mention, one of which is that it does change the price of the contract, which would be a substantive change. I'm not sure whether or not the public notice for everyone seeing the contract and being able to review it would be okay. I would defer to Ashley on that. And then secondly, I believe that it would be good to touch base with finance to make sure that we currently have the funds to sign this contract with the twice a week, because it will raise the rate of the contract.
All right. Let's go. In meantime, while we figure that part out, let's go to Councilman Amoroso.
Ms. Mann, please. So it seems as if the big conversation here is once a week or twice a week. And I did have a constituent ask me the other day. She said, so if my garbage is supposed to be picked up on Monday, they don't show up, which sometimes it does. And I understand that there's reasons why that it doesn't. But again, you know, a lot of times you come the next day, or we do know that that second day is coming. What happens if we do go to once a week and it's not picked up? Are we looking at 2 weeks, going 2 weeks without our garbage picked up?
No.
Or can you
In the contract, there's stipulations in there that state, if a resident calls in and says they were missed, we didn't service them, we have 24 hours to go back to that resident and service them. They won't have to wait another week. And one thing I didn't talk about when Councilman Noel was talking about the trucks, we are going to put cameras on the arms of the trucks that's going to video all day so that we can ensure that our drivers are servicing every resident of Baton Rouge. So if you call in and say that we didn't service you, we're going to clearly be able to see it in the camera, but we'll also be able to provide that information to the resident as well. And I hope I answered your question. And, holidays, let's talk about a holiday, okay? Thanksgiving always falls on a Thursday. So if you're going to once a week garbage Thursday, we're not going to run on Thursday. It will be serviced on Friday, and then we'll service the Friday customers on Saturday.
Okay.
So we would just be running one day behind.
Okay. And I think I was going to ask Fred a question about 311, but he took off. So I'll go back. Thank you.
Councilmember Goudet.
Thank you, sir. I think there's been some questions raised and there's some discussions going on. I would say to my colleagues regarding the motion that's been made, this is obviously a very important decision, and I don't know that we should make a change that substantial on the fly, whether or not they say you can do it or not within the scope of the meeting. It's a significant change, and I would tell you I will likely offer up a substitute motion to defer to provide more time for everyone to be involved in that sort of a conversation, finance, legal, residents particularly. I would say I don't know that there's a policy or a contract or a rate that would satisfy 133,000 households. There is no one size fits all here. So let me express appreciation to all of those who have engaged in contract negotiations to date. It's not an easy task, and then as you can see, when 12 people get it, we all have differing ideas, we all have input, we all get good input from residents throughout the parish, and want to have our say. So again, not an easy task, and no one size fits all. Whether we the item before us tonight gets approved or not, what I would say, and I'll look at all of the Republic folks because know most of you have worked with most of you through the existing contract, is what we really are talking about is our residents want certainty. If we go to once a week, I think folks could adjust to that as long as they have certainty. And that's our job as a local government in anything, whether it's how we develop in our community, whether it's what's our road infrastructure, our drainage infrastructure. Residents need to have that certainty so that they can carry on with their lives and their business. This service is no different. They want to know that the garbage is going to be picked up whenever it's supposed to be picked up. And, and if it's missed, by chance that it's missed, which will inevitably happen, that they can leave it out for 24 hours and it's going to be picked up on the back end. So what I want to impress upon you is this comes down to service. If this item gets through tonight and we have a change for our community, our community will adjust. We will adjust, but it's going to come down to service delivery. It's going to come down to how you all stand behind the service you've committed to. And I will say this, if there are hiccups in that, if we revisit where we were a year and a half, 2 years ago, residents won't stand for it. We're going to hear it, and we won't. I'll be the first in line to say, pull out the penalty provisions from that contract, and let's start having some serious conversations. And I think you'll have many people doing that. So I intended to say that in a very encouraging way, because I think it will come down to the delivery of service. Whatever path we go down, that's what residents are looking for. You were going to say something?
Yeah, so to talk about that, I mentioned the cameras. That was one of the main reasons we wanted to do that. And to assure that if a resident calls 311, that we're going to come back and we're going to service that resident. One thing we haven't talked about, and I understand Baton Rouge is a little different, but your neighboring communities like Iberville Parish and Lafayette and Livingston Parish and Ascension Parish, they all have once a week garbage service. And most of those areas are cart contents only. They don't even have an out of cart option. And, those people have chimed in, and we service some of those areas as well. And it really is, we feel that it's doable. And across the country, about 85% of the municipal contracts are once a week currently. So it is something different. Baton Rouge currently has a lot of services. You've got twice a week garbage, once a week recycling, once a week out of cart, once a week boom truck, once a week flatbed truck, once a week tires. So there's just a lot of services. And a lot of communities across the United States don't have all those services anymore. But there's to say, when you want those services, unfortunately, with inflation and how it is, and I think Councilman Noel or actually Councilman Dunn talked about the increases in just supply chain and fuel and everything else. But we agree, service is something we want. That's why we brought the additional trucks in last year during COVID, when we went from picking up, our normal services at the curb, and then all of a sudden it increased to 35%. So we had to bring in additional equipment to take care of that. Well, those volumes didn't really go down. So we brought in that equipment at Republic's we paid for that. There was no additional cost to the public. So we're seeing that things have changed. Some people are still working from home and people are at home. So we are seeing those increases. And that's why I think Rick and them put in there for the additional cart. There's a couple of residents in Baton Rouge that currently have about 10 carts in front of their house, but it's what they need, so, they will have that option to do that. And then, again, when Brandon asked me about the trucks, and when you talk about compressed natural gas, that's really good when CNG trucks. When you talk about that, that's something that is really good for this community. We have contributing to helping with air quality. I think one person talked about, we had the advantage of having CNG. Unfortunately, there was an administration before y'all that 10 years ago, the previous mayor told us that we had to put CNG in, and that's when we had to spend $10 million for that infrastructure, because we wanted to do business with the city, and that's why we did it. So I encourage you that, we will service you once a week, we will service you twice a week. The cost of twice a week was what people were really concerned about, because there were constituents out there that were concerned about having to pay those additional fees.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One more statement, sir, and then I'll be done. Thank you.
Great.
And I'll acknowledge that, inflation certainly is real, and I would like to say I think the increase of $5.50 a month and the decrease to once a week is a way to mitigate the cost increases, and this industry that you're in is not alone in that. I think that we all can recognize that. It will trigger, if in fact this goes through and we go to once a week, it will trigger some changes in behavior with rising costs at gas stations, at grocery stores. My family has made changes in our behavior. I'm sure others can relate in this room. It will change some behavior for folks if they're getting once a week service. And I think if we're continued partners on this, we've got to work together to address those. We need to be ready to adapt and adjust to those changes in behaviors to address them, because my colleagues here have some very valid concerns about the quality of place and beauty of our city. So thank you.
We just got some clarity. The motion on the floor is good, so we're good with that motion. No, it's a motion on the floor. It's good. It's in order. We go to council member. You want to respond to that?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about what, there is a transition period, not an extension period, but the transition period, and the reason why we're here tonight is so that we can do it gradual to where the residents can get used to it. So what we proposed and talked to the administration about, and they also brought it to us, is that, the fee would go into effect March 1st. Okay, but before that, from January to the end of February, there would be an extensive public outreach, education, allowing for people to understand and ask questions, going to every council district meetings to have those conversations. Then the fee would go into effect March 1st. After that, we would continue with the same services for people to get used to the fee. So twice a week would continue until June 1st. June 1st, we would go to once a week. At this point, we're still picking up the out of cart. We're still doing everything like we were. And then the out of cart changes would not start until September 1. So you're still talking about a 6-month transition period that would happen, that would allow residents to get more comfortable with things, get used to it, and also have the questions answered between January 1st and the end of February. All right, thank you.
Let me see. The mayor did work very closely with Sharon Republic trying to set that up where there was a transition period. But it really does come back to the council's decision in terms of one day or twice a week. And the mayor wants to know that there are those two proposals. She was very concerned about costs for the citizens. Thanks.
Councilmember Hudson.
If I could get Mr. Goranson up first. Mr. Goranson, I wanted to first address some of the concerns that were in this Waste Pro letter. So there's 3 points here. They talk about by not requiring new equipment, the current contractor has an advantage by not having the capital outlay of all new equipment. It's my understanding that it was a requirement of the RFP for all new equipment. Is that right?
Yes, there is an age with which we'll accept the equipment, and that's really based on reliability. We don't want garbage trucks broken down throughout the parish.
And then, Ms. Mann, if you would come up, we are in fact getting all new trucks with this contract.
Yes,
correct?
not only are we getting brand new trucks, but we're also getting brand new trucks for recycling that we're going to convert to automated trucks.
Okay. And I might call you back to ask more questions about those trucks in a minute, but we'll see how much time we have. All right. Another point in here talks about not equalizing scoring for contractors that don't use, that would have to build a CNG facility. Under public bid law, would you be able to equalize scoring for
No,
someone
I
in
wouldn't-
that way?
And I apologize, I would not know how to do that. So if the requirements for the responsive to the proposal were to use compressed natural gas, then it's incumbent upon that provider to normalize that cost over the 10-year period. So if it was a $10 million investment, I would expect that they're carrying $1 million and they're basically building that back into their price. But I have no way to say, we have one vendor that can do it this way, but you don't want to make the investment to do it. So if the scope and the specs required a CNG solution, then it's incumbent on that provider to provide one to us.
Gotcha. And then their last point was, by not splitting the service area into more manageable sections, the city parish is severely limiting the contractor pool and limiting your choices. Can you talk a little bit about why the decision was made not to divide the parish up into smaller sections or anything like that?
So in one sense, there's economies of scale. So recognize that as we try to do 3 different areas, the other one actually becomes pricing. So without getting into a business model for them, it's going to be a distance factor. So folks in St. George are going to be driving, or, it's going to take longer to get all the way up here. So now we don't want pricing for folks in Scotlandville versus the Zachary area versus Central versus St. George. We're trying to normalize it for all of our citizens. The other issue becomes, whose fault is it that day? And so I would also like to clarify that, and Waste Pro is a very reputable company. They did not actually bid all 3. They said, I'll bid one, and as we establish ourselves, we'll negotiate in good faith in another one and another one. So I believe that that's kind of misleading. They did not provide us a solution for all 3.
Now, you're talking about on out of cart now, right?
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
sorry.
Gotcha. Yeah, and so for them to have been I guess a qualified bidder, they would have needed to have bid all 3 for out of cart?
Yes.
Okay, I understand. Thank you, Chris.
And they were qualified. Their proposal just said that they wanted to stagger it over time, which then meant I had to go negotiate with other folks and do extensions
For it
and
to
everything else.
have been able to be acceptable, it would have had to have bid it on all 3. All right. Rick and Fred, if y'all would. So I'm curious, what other factors other than cost did we look at when looking at once a week service? I know I've talked to you guys extensively about, we have a big concern coming up with the I-10 widening project. Do we think that a move to once a week service is going to help us navigate those concerns and that type of thing?
Certainly, there's going to be a challenge regardless, but I would say that keeping the trucks off the streets as much as possible during that time using the interstate, particularly from the south part of the parish, because of getting to the landfill, most the garbage haulers do use the interstate, which is going to require them to look at other alternate ways. But that was a factor that we looked at totally, but reality, nobody had the firm numbers yet at that point where we were actually going to be doing the work. But it's no question that it's a plus by looking at it from that perspective.
Tell me a little bit about use of the second day service as well.
The other item you have to remember, since right now the garbage trucks, which are some of the biggest trucks on our streets, go through each neighborhood twice a week. With once a week, they're only going to be going in through those neighborhoods once a week, which increases public safety.
Sure. Tell me a little bit about use of the service for the second day a week. You guys sent out a fact sheet to us previously. I don't think it was on the current fact sheet, but only about 40% of the residents actually use their second day of service. Is that correct?
That's our estimate at this point. Even the residents that do second pickup, they may only have one bag. I've talked to people, I put it out because they're servicing it, not because they need it, it's because they have one bag and they want it empty.
So there's even not only do only 40% of the people use it, but it's also a lighter load on the second service day?
Absolutely.
Gotcha. And then I've heard some reports, and I've answered a ton of emails about this, so I want to ask it on the record and get it cleared up here tonight. It has been reported that woody waste and bulk trash service are going away. Please explain that is not the case, and explain how that service will continue to work.
That is not the case. What's happening is it's going to be a limited number of items, and that's the only proposals we got from both firms was on the limited amount of debris pickup, and that was established as 10 items. Now, it could be 10 bags of leaves, it could be 10 bundles of branches, or it could be 10 6-inch branches that are 5 feet long that weigh 40 pounds each. 40 pounds is an OSHA standard and that's private contractors have to abide by the OSHA standards on that, even though the city doesn't, but they do. So that's why that was established. But on top of that, the contractor, if someone has a large amount of debris and they need it picked up and they're willing to pay for it, then they can negotiate with the contractor. He's going to leave an OOPS card with their number on there, and they have established rates for those kinds of collections that will be scheduled on an as-needed basis.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have for now.
Councilmember Rocker.
All right. So, when this was presented to me, it was presented as an option of 2 times a week, 1 time a week. The price differences were for a cost mitigation effort in an attempt to lower the cost or absorb the rising costs of inflation. I know that I've had constituents that have been completely and totally confused, just thinking that we were rising the cost and reducing the services just on our own will. But the reality of it is, the way that it was brought to me was that we had that option and we had to evaluate whether we wanted the $35+ or whether we wanted to stay the same at $28. Just to clear up that little piece of misinformation that's been floating around. Some questions that I had before we got here tonight, and some questions that I've had from constituents which have been answered, but I just want to reiterate those questions as we move forward. When was the RFP? And we heard that the RFP went out in April, correct? Who drafted the RFP? And there was a company, can you restate the name, please?
It was Burns and McDonnell.
Okay.
And it was a division that deals with these types of contracts nationwide.
Got it. How many companies requested a copy of the RFP?
I don't know, because that goes through an internet portal where they could download it. But we had 25 different contractors attend the pre-bid meeting.
25 at the pre-bid meeting, okay. And how many companies actually responded to the RFP?
We had 3 companies respond. There's Waste Pro, Waste Management, and Republic Services.
Okay. And then what was the step after that?
The first step was we presented the written proposals, the technical portion of the proposals, to the review committee. And we only had 1 responsive. The other 2 said thank you, but no thank you, essentially. And then they both had details for that. And they reviewed the technical and scored the technical proposal. So they had to have a minimum number of points to be able to go to the cost proposal.
Okay, and in your simplest terms, please explain to me, what does 1 responsive mean?
Non-responsive?
Or there were some that were non-responsive and there was 1 that was responsive?
Well, yeah, 1 responsive by Republic Services. That means they gave us a response to every question and every requirement in the technical proposal that we wanted. They gave us the collection information, they gave their contract information, they gave contact information, and how they propose to do the services.
And should that be left out, then should a company leave out answers to any of the questions, then that is considered non-responsive, correct?
No, that they just wouldn't get a score
Okay.
On that portion of the technical proposal.
Okay. And just to be clear, yet again, what is the current cost for twice a week pickup?
The current cost, you talking about for the Republic cost to us? Or
the monthly cost that is put on a bill that EBR...
It's $23 a month.
Okay. And then what is the cost of once a week pickup? And I have here, once a week pickup would be increased to $28.97. Is that correct?
So that sheet has the cost of services for the city. What we're proposing is $28.50.
Okay. And then whenever we're talking about the twice a week pickup, which was presented as an alternative, that cost was $35.23, correct?
That's the cost, yes.
And then the addition of a cart for those folks that wanted to have an additional cart, if services were only to be one time per week, that was $7, correct?
And that would actually be on both services.
On both services.
Yes.
So universally $7.
Yes.
All right. So we've had lots of complaints about service over the years, and this is not a dig at Republic because they've been very responsive with regard to my office and my district, so I appreciate that. Yet there's still been several service issues that we've received complaints about through 311 or just directly through my district email. Our penalties are written into the contract, correct?
Well, penalties are in the existing contract, and we've set it up as administrative charges, because penalties, you have to go through the attorney process and through the courts. Administrative cost charges would be done by the Director of Environmental Services for, there's a whole litany of administrative charges that could be applied for missed services for a neighborhood, and it's escalating on those things.
Okay, so let's say, for example, this is actually factual. I have a resident in my district that provides me with a spreadsheet every time that trash is missed and the cost of each trash collection based upon their current bill. With that person in their spreadsheet for the missed collection times or dates, what would be an example of the administrative charges that person could pursue under the current contract?
Well, that person would have to make the 311 report first.
Right.
And Republic has to respond to that service. And if they respond to that service request, then there is no administrative charges. And that's what we want. We want things picked up before we get to that point. The administrative charges are meant to improve services, not to just penalize. So that's the whole point of the administrative charges. We want them to pick up. We want them to be responsive and make sure, especially since we're going to once a week.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So let's say, for example, worst case scenario, there are administrative charges. What does that process look like and how is that applied?
So
how is that enforced?
That would be me notifying in writing to Republic Services. This is the missed services that we have by Republic Services, and this is the charges that you have, and they would have to pay back to for those administrative charges to the Department of Environmental Services. Those charges would be deposited into the enterprise fund for the collection.
And explain to me what the enterprise fund for collection is.
So in my department is completely under an enterprise fund, one for sewer, one for collection, one for the landfill. So they're separate from the general fund, and they're specified uses for the funds. And the funds in the collection fund can only be used for collecting and disposing of trash and garbage and collecting recycles.
Okay, and then there's another piece that I don't think we've talked much about, and if we have, I'm sorry I missed it. We've received a lot of information. There's a 4% increase year over year that's attached to this contract and written in. Can you talk to us about that, what that is, what it looks like, and the impact on the bill?
So that 4% is on the contract amount, and it's a yearly increase. In the RFP, we had CPI indices set up for this contract. And for this year, if we had those things in place like Austin, we were looking at 8 to 10% increasing our prices. So part of the negotiation, we negotiated the price coming down. We also negotiated the setting the indices at 4% a year for the contract price. It's not on the $28.50. It's on the contract, the $11 and the $6 and the $7.50.
So it's not on the total bill. It's
That's
on
correct.
An incremental piece. And for the layperson, can you tell me what CPI is?
Consumer Price Index.
Got it.
You tested me on that one, so.
Sorry, me too. Okay. This one made me lose my train of thought because he won't hush. I'll come back. Thank you.
Councilmember Moak.
Thank you. A few things here, especially about the ordinance that we're voting on coming up. But does this, I guess to Republic or anyone, does the selection of the once or twice a week change anything in the investment that Republic will make as far as equipment and what they're getting?
So obviously the price is different, right, for twice a week, and it will cost more. We will have to purchase a few more pieces of equipment. But for us, if you want once a week, we had a price in the RFP for that, and we had a price for twice a week.
Correct. Now, I understand the prices are different to the consumer or whatever, but does it change anything in your investment in equipment? You just mentioned a second ago that you would possibly have to get more trucks. Does that translate into changing this from 3523 and going higher possibly because you have to invest more equipment?
No, when we did the bid, that cost was included in there.
Okay.
But remember, our price isn't the 35, right? That's what the constituents would be billed. Ours is the lesser fee when it's broken down. When you look at the broken down sheets.
Correct. Y'all's is twice a week garbage, $16.53.
Mm-hmm.
But the total to the consumer is going to be $35.23 of what we have. Now, originally when that was presented to us, it was presented to us as $38 and something. I know it's semantics, but it reads differently.
Mm-hmm.
That's we're talking about $28.90, $28.97, which is on the paper, but y'all saying $28.50 to $35, $35.23, and you're getting. I mean, actually, you're getting still the twice a week service. You're getting more service, I feel like, in the out of cart. I feel like you're getting good service in the recycle. A lot of things are coming together a lot better with a $10 or $12 increase over over the previous 10 years with inflation and everything. I guess the big thing to me is, does anything else change by us selecting the twice a week? Does any difference in services or anything once a week versus twice a week?
So the only other difference, if you look at footnote on twice a week, the purchase of the carts are 20,000 are in the garbage fee. So
is that going to change the price? What's changing the price?
No, that's not changing the price. That's included in that price. If we take it out, then it might change the price.
Okay. If we select twice a week, which could possibly reduce your monthly user fee of expecting 50,000 residents to add a separate cart, does that ultimately affect the contract or change anything?
Not for the contract.
So, okay. Next thing. In this, what I was told earlier was this ordinance, there's something coming back to us in January. Please describe that.
Yes, it's the ordinance that governs the service fee charged to the residents. And it outlines the single resident service fee. It'll outline the second cart fee being charged to the residents, and also the multifamily dumpster fees. That's all included in that ordinance, and there's definitions included in that ordinance. It's an existing ordinance. We're amending that existing ordinance.
So in January, we're amending the ordinance based on the selection that we make once a week or twice a week, and we're solidifying that by ordinance to start billing people at that cost.
On March 1st.
Okay. From my understanding also, we've been told that, of course, we end on 12/31, sorry. Contract's coming to the end, there is no pushing it forward, we need to get this done, we need to get equipment ordered and things like that. In my opinion, this change, and it might look like small to some people, but this $35 is an option as far as taking back to the people to continue their service, to continue the 2 times a week, plus the added benefit of what y'all are doing with the cameras, with the equipment. I think, honestly, I think service is going to be so much better because there's so much more accountability in this new contract. But if the people want the 2 times a week, I've been out basically because I felt like it was way too much out of line for the 2 days a week. I've been touting the 1 day a week. And I think, looking at this, the twice a week's a good selling point. And can we pass the...
Councilmember Moak, are you going one more time later?
Possibly.
Well, you've already spoke twice. So I can give you time now, I can give you time later. Which one you want?
I'm going to go ahead and go now a little bit. So anyway, we're going to... Can we select... We need to select a vendor.
That's
in
correct.
this ordinance tonight, we're selecting the vendor. The vendor is Republic. Is there
And
to keep them
Cisco.
moving forward and to keep East Baton Rouge Parish moving forward? And I know they got to get equipment ordered. Can you select the vendor and select knowing they got the contract and it's not going to change anything in purchasing equipment or anything else, and then make the call that January what we're going to solidify on the 1 week or once a week or twice a week at that January meeting?
Yes.
We can do that.
Yes, and then we would have to amend.
But she can get started with.
We would come back and to amend their contract to reflect the fees
Point
from
of order,
them.
point of order. You're saying yes, but we need a legal position on that, because I don't think we can do that.
Under the.
The item is actually awarding the contract itself,
That's right.
so go ahead.
So if you approve the contract as it is tonight, which it's written with 1 service per week, then that's the way it will move forward. And if you choose to come back in January and amend that contract for twice a week or any other amendment that both parties agree to, you can do that.
So if we approve tonight at twice a week, we can still do the same.
I'm sorry, sir, say
If
again.
we approve tonight at twice a week, we can still do the same.
Any contract that you have, if both parties agree, you can come back and amend it as long as that term that you want to amend is legal.
Yeah, he made the motion. Yeah. So we have a motion on the floor. Go ahead.
I just thought maybe we could be clear to go ahead and of course select the vendor, but then, and I know we have the motion on the floor and all, but select the actual, instead of having to go amend, select the actual type of contract that we want or the type of service that we want on that January 25th.
But we can't
So,
amend the
so let me
contract.
be clear. I want to make sure everybody's clear. The item on the agenda is awarding the contract. So whatever we approve tonight, whether it's twice or once a week, we can come back and amend in January. The motion on the floor is to award the contract at twice a week.
Do we have to approve either one?
No,
tonight?
I'm sorry. The contract's written right now at once a week.
Correct. But the motion on the floor is twice.
Yeah.
Right. Well, it's not an amendment, it's a motion.
To
'cause it
make an
doesn't say-
amendment, but that won't amend the contract tonight.
Yes, it will.
Let's get
Lisa?
a clarification. Do we have to approve one or the other with this ordinance tonight?
Hold up. Shauna, go ahead.
Wow.
Yes, the way the resolution is written, you can make the motion on the floor to change it tonight.
Correct.
Understood. Can I make a motion on the floor to not select either one of them, but award the contract to Republic and then make the selection that we want on January? Because the reason I'm saying that is, I appreciate the motion and everything as far as the twice a week, and somebody can make a motion to accept the once a week, but we'll have something floating out there that I feel like the public will feel like we're stuck in unless we go back through this whole process. I mean, am I wrong on that?
Yes.
Why can't we select
Because the way the contract, the way the item is written is that the contract is awarded at once a week. What you're suggesting is we award a contract with no terms.
To select the term, yes. I'm sorry, Ms. Banks, whatever you'd like. What I'm trying to make it something that we can go back and discuss to the public without having something permanently selected. And I know we can amend and change, don't get me wrong. But I feel like in the public perception, in the public eyes, we're going to select something here tonight, and it could possibly not get changed or so on based on conversations with the public. That's just my opinion.
Councilmember Banks, I need my $100. Go ahead. You said you weren't going to speak at all tonight.
You should have taken the deal.
And Councilmember, I just want to caution everyone, the time now is 5:48. We only have about 2.5 hours left in this meeting, and we're only on item 1.
Okay, all right.
Go ahead.
I definitely would love for Republic Services to maintain the services because they are one of the economic drivers in my district. However, I think we're missing a big point as it relates to the RFP. The RFP, and these are the concerns that have come to me and possibly some of the other our colleagues. When we talk about the RFP, Chris, Sharon, Richard, what people are concerned about is the fact that the RFP was orchestrated and written to favor Republic Services. So when we talk about the technical questions, Richard, of course they answered all the questions if that is true. Now, and I'm not asking for rebuttal, they are comments. But I do have a question. Was Republic involved in this at all?
In the production of the RFP, no.
Okay.
No consultation with them.
By a Republic Services person that remained on that they began working with the mayor's office on this in January. Just telling you. All right. 1 year. If you all have been working from January to February on this proposal, all the things that Sharon just mentioned you would want to do from January to March, they should have been done from January to December. One of the reasons that I consider BRIC one of the most equitable public agencies is because they do surveys and outreach before they do anything. Whether we believe it or not, there's a tremendous amount of distrust in government, on the council, with its administration. In God we trust, and all other things bring data. If there's a fact, if you all had a consultant, we should have known about the consultant. I'm just telling you. We should have known. Did we know about it?
Yeah, you approved the contract.
Okay, so we had, when was that?
It was in September of 21.
Okay, so it's September 21. So from September 21 to September 22, did we receive any feedback as it relates to that contractor's work?
No.
Okay, that's a problem.
It was a $60,000 contract.
Okay, so we gave them $60,000, which is good. They possibly they will add them to the playing field where they probably worked with the city, possibly Republic, possibly purchasing. All of that does not validate and bring integrity in it. And I'm sorry that I don't remember a contract but I understand. But anyway, the other thing, penalties. I do understand you have penalties in it, but let me ask you, is it written so that there can be, that it is an automatic penalty, or is it subject to somebody's approval or discretion?
It's not a discretion, it's dependent on their performance and I'm getting the data out of 311 and how that response is.
So it's possible that's subjective because none of us are really going to be involved in that. And what concerns me is that we have that with ITEP. And when people come and they couldn't explain away the issue, they get past the penalty. So I don't feel a particular amount of comfort in saying that we have a penalty. My other concern is, and I'm not really versed in this, but I've heard about that where at one point, where one of the things Waste Pro, you said that they approved, there were 3 areas?
3 zones, yes.
Zones. So you mean they were going to work with different parts of the?
So we set up the RFP for the outer cart, 3 zones, and those 3 zones correlate with the Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday garbage areas. And we had the amount of residents in each one stipulated on that one.
Okay. Now, what are the 3 services? I've always heard that when we first started, there were 3 services. So it's outer cart, what else?
Recycling,
and garbage. So Republic Services has only
the garbage and recycling, because that's what they proposed on.
Okay.
That's the only thing they proposed.
So why didn't our RFP either request that, which is what the mayor said in 2016, that she would have 3 different contracts, or why didn't we say why did they have the discretion to choose 2 out of 3?
So, and that's the way the RFP was set up, so we could try to get more contractors involved with this. We actually had the garbage recycling collection, we have the outer cart selection, and the recycling processing as another portion of the RFP.
You said there were 3, they did 2 out of 3.
Yeah, they did the garbage recycling, and they gave us a price for the processing.
Okay,
and because they only have the only processing facility in the area.
So you're saying that the only reason they chose those 2 out of the 3 is because city government felt it was the best deal?
Well, no, that's what they proposed on.
But you see how they leading, you see how they driving the ship?
I understand, then that's why we ended up having to put out another RFP for the outer cart to try to get a contractor.
But still, I'm saying they still got to cherry pick which areas.
And every contractor got to have that option. Though they didn't propose on it, they had that option to propose on it.
Okay. So. Again, I've had private conversations where they chose, and I've read nationally as it relates to public services being a Fortune 500, that is their new business model, to only do outer cart and recycling. Not outer cart.
Garbage and recycling.
Garbage and recycling.
Yes.
So it's not because this is not a local thing.
Well,
okay, I know, but you weren't saying that. This is basically driven by the way their industry works. Republic Services nationwide has a strategic plan where they plan to increase yearly. That basically they want to get out of that when you're dealing with municipalities. I mean, I kind of read up on it. Municipalities, that if you are not increasing your rates yearly, basically you're gonna get screwed. So today, and even the trucks, all of that is driven not by this contract, that is driven by Republic Services nationally. So whether they get this truck or not, this contract or not, they still got to buy trucks. That is throughout. The other thing is that is a real concern. For instance, Councilman Noel has 80% Zachary. Zachary don't even get a Republic. This not even part of this contract for the most part. I have 80% of Baker. Baker is not part of this contract. Central is, my concern, and we saw this a lot during the flood, trucks, the Republic trucks, and this is my concern, that the city of Baton Rouge will pay for all these new trucks, but you better believe the mayor of Baker, the mayor of Zachary, and the mayor of Central, who's allegedly want out, they're not going to play this same game we playing. So the citizens in Baton Rouge are going to foot the price of all of this, but the whole parish. I mean, even during the flood and all that, we had trucks, in Iberville or in Lafayette. I don't know what the different ones, but we're gonna pay for it, but everybody else is gonna benefit because these other municipalities, Republic not gonna be able to do this with them. They're not gonna play it. So my concern is, and I can't control all the factors, but I do feel comfortable with the 2 a week at $35.23. I do feel that is a fair situation. I don't think anybody has a problem with it going up. Everybody knows inflation. So if you go to the grocery store, you're gonna buy what you need. So I agree with Councilman Hurst that we should move forward with the 3523. I think it's a fair and equitable measure. People need the twice a week. We cannot assume that people are going to change behaviors because I'm not changing behaviors. I work too hard to be having to figure out once and twice a week. I'm going to put it in the garbage and that's just going to be it. But by the other token, I just would
Council
hope.
member.
Okay, all right.
That's 13 minutes, so.
Okay. Okay, I'm totally going to stop because now I owe you $50.
Go ahead. Thank you. All right. Councilmember Adams.
Go ahead, Fred.
Mr. Chairman, members of council, I just would like to have an opportunity to respond to a comment was made, and I can appreciate everybody has their.
I like to, what they call it, point of order. I don't think I should have to be subjected to that.
I got it. We'll come back to you, but right now, we're going to go to Councilmember Adams.
Okay.
So, Fred, go ahead. I mean, you've got my time. It's okay. Make your statement. It's okay.
I just would like to respond to the comment that Republic was part of the RFP process. They were not. I mean, that's totally illegal. They're not supposed to be in part of the process. We understand that comments are made on all sides and what people talk to, but while I was not totally involved, but I was involved in part of this process, and at no time that I'm aware that anybody from Republic come in and provided any information in regard to how we were proposing to do the work on this RFP. I just wanted to make that from a clarification standpoint.
Okay. Thank you, Fred. You may be able to answer this question that I have. In anticipation of this contract, if St. George, which is in the court system right now, were to be stood up as a city and form a city in the next year or two, what would happen with St. George and the Republic contract? Would St. George still be under that contract? Would they receive services from Republic, or would they have to immediately fund a new garbage service?
That's a good question. Certainly, we did ask that. At this point, where we are, we're providing that service. There may be additional costs that may be associated with that, but that certainly, I think that from a legal aspect, that would be between their parish attorney and the city of St. George. But under our proposal right now, we included all of it because, and while I know there are a lot of debate about whether it's really a St. George or not, but in reality, it's not. And we have to look at it as the parish, and that's how we looked at the service from that standpoint.
But there's nothing in this contract that would immediately exclude that area should it form into a new municipality?
No, ma'am.
Okay, it would still. So, is there someone who can speak to that who's intimately familiar with the contract from our legal department? Lisa, Bob, I don't know who all is.
All right, now it's 6 o'clock. Somebody come on up.
Just like we had to do with Central and what will probably, if St. George is formed, there will be a caucus between the two governments to decide what services. We know we will be providing sewer because that's a parish-wide, even we provide sewer treatment for Baker and Zachary on a fee basis. So some of the services will go forward. Other parts will be in part of transition. Usually what we take up is development, public works maintenance, those things we transition depending on how they stand themselves up. So if they want to take over and negotiate their own garbage contract, then we would have to go back and amend the contract with Republic at that time. But there would be no automatic discontinuing of services.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the constituents are paying for the service, whether they're in the parish or St. George. Right now, as far as I know, Central's still in, and that's in the model.
Okay.
But going forward, if they want out, then
right,
we may have to come back. I don't know what the negotiations would be.
Sure.
Republic might say it's 23 cents more, 23 cents less.
Right.
Something like that. I don't.
Sure. I'm just trying to make sure that there's no, automatic, you have garbage service one day and you don't have it the next day. That's what I'm
No,
trying to
there'll be an
make sure.
intergovernmental agreement on the transition of services of all different departments to St. George at some point in time that'll have to be negotiated.
Okay. Thank you, Bob. I appreciate it. Thanks so much. Question. Linda, how much Linda Hunt, and I'll ask it while you head up here to save on time. How much bad debt have we planned for in our solid waste budget contract? And what success rate do we have in collecting that bad debt?
I don't know the exact percentage, Councilwoman, but it's very low.
Okay.
And the reason it's very low is because we have a contract with Baton Rouge Water and that they collect our fee. And if you don't pay your fee, we can turn your water off. So people pay their fee, and so this is one of the fees that we have a very low uncollectible on.
Okay. And but we do.
Okay. $450,000 a year out of a $58,000 revenue.
At $58 million.
$58 million.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am.
Got it. And we do work to collect that bad debt.
Yes, the
Okay.
parish attorney's office has a collection component of their office, and we do have some instances where people have private water that we do pursue it if they do not pay, and that is the majority of this bad debt, is if someone has private water. Yes, ma'am.
Got it. Thank you. And look, this next question is going to be for you as well. So I've heard from a number of senior citizens on a fixed income. Everything is going up for them, but the amount of money, their retirement benefits, their pension is not rising. So my concern is if it's the will of the council and we go to the twice a week and the $35 a month, some of these senior citizens, they're literally producing maybe 1 or 2 bags of garbage a week. They'll be paying for twice a week service. Is there any kind of hardship? Is there any kind of income level? Is there any kind of a way to apply for assistance with this bill for some of our senior citizens who are going to be struggling?
So the program that we have in effect right now is not it's not based on senior citizens. We do have a program for economically disadvantaged individuals, and the way that we do that is they qualify through the LIHEAP program through through DHDS, our Department of Health and Human Services. And so if they qualify for LIHEAP, they can also qualify for a discount on their monthly service. But we do not have one that is senior citizen based.
So, but a senior citizen could, based on their income,
that's correct.
meet that threshold.
And whenever you look at programs like that, you have to look at what you can do under the state constitution. And so that it's not perceived as a donation, because this is a user fee.
Right.
And I know that the economically disadvantaged is one of those areas that allows you to do that. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you, Linda. I'd like to talk to Sharon. Is Sharon in here? Hey, Sharon. One of the things that I've heard about, and I don't think I've heard it talked about tonight, but I'd like to get some more clarity on, is this contract. We're talking about changes to the 311 service. Is that correct? My understanding was that y'all were going to be hiring personnel to deal with 311 calls, or that y'all were going to be more intimately involved in our 311 call system with regard to Republic calls.
Right. So
you as council people and the mayor and the residents don't want us answering your calls, right? So for a reporting purpose, they're going to go through 311, so you've got a documented conversation that person called in. We then would immediately get it, just like we do now, through the 311 system or the Q alert system, and that's where we actually are calling customers back. And so it's the same process, but you know, we decided, and not we, really the administration decided that y'all need a way to track your calls, and not assuming, and hopefully I'm sure we wouldn't do it, but you could say, well, did you only really get 100 calls, or did you get 1,000 calls and you only reported us that we got 100? So you want that documentation through 311.
Okay, so the staffing on your end is going to remain the same with handling 311
Yeah,
calls?
well, I need to bring in someone else to help me with the cameras, so that we can go in and make sure whenever a 311 resident calls in and says, hey, I didn't receive service, in 311 you have the ability to attach that picture, and we're going to have people that's going to have to be reviewing a lot of that camera and those pictures coming through, so that we can document and it can go back to the resident pretty quickly.
Got it. Okay,
Yep.
thank you that for that clarity. And one more question for you. How much garbage does the average household in the city parish produce?
So in Baton Rouge, I mean, normally across the country, you know, and with COVID it was a little different, but it's usually about 1.2 tons per household per year. But we've gotten as high locally as 1.9. So the people are producing more garbage, you know, whether it's because of inflation, meaning I'm going to go to the grocery store, I'm not going to eat out as much, I'm going to cook more. I actually paid attention the other night when I was cooking and how many cans I opened and how many, you know, I was generating more garbage by doing that, instead of just picking up something on the way and just opening the pack and eating out of it. So I can't really explain it. We saw our highest volume of Thanksgiving this year, and we were all kind of just surprised by that and didn't, you know, but that's the only explanation that we can see, that people are really adjusting to inflation and are doing things differently.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. So I've certainly gotten a lot of emails and phone calls from constituents. My constituents, a lot of my constituents have really, said that they can live with once a week garbage service, but they were very concerned about raising fees. And so I do have concerns about going to twice a week, because I think there are a number of our residents, I can think of probably 6 on my street, that I doubt even fill up a cart a week. So, the ability to have once a week service and kind of level our service and have the people who need once a week service receive once a week service, and the people who have larger households, who produce more garbage, who need more service, be able to get that second cart and pay an additional $7 a month, seems to me it seems to me like we're looking at a one-size-fits-all approach, when we could really have a more tailored approach that would fit the varying needs of members of our community. So, thank you.
Councilmember Hurst, you got 30 seconds.
All right, it'll be 45. But look, because I added another piece.
Man, go
to it.
ahead. You're wasting time.
Look, all right, so Ms. Mann brought up something really important when she brought up during Thanksgiving, people at home. So you get more trash collection, right? That's equivalent to what people who have multiple kids get on a weekly basis. So it has more consumption, so you need 2 trash cans. And there was some simple math that I think everybody's missing in here. $35.23 is cheaper than $35.97, and $35.97 is 1 day with an additional cart. So if I have an option to pick $28.97 and pay an additional $7 to pay more for less service, I'm going to do $35.23 and get more service for a few pennies less. Thank you for your time.
Boy, you actually made some good sense, Dan. I appreciate that, man. Councilmember Moak, you've already spoken 3 times. Councilmember Coleman, 3.
I'm going to have to do something for you, son.
That was the end of the 3rd time. You spoke for 15 minutes.
All right.
Councilmember Coleman.
All right. You got 3 of mine. As the gentleman, let me say this. Last night, we told a constituent that conversations should have been had before we got to this point. And really, that's a concern of mine, just a bit more conversations being had before we get to this point with whatever's being said. And then we talk about the public and all of this. And I tell you, as we were so fluid here tonight with being able to say straight up what is, I don't know. I don't know about that. We talked about inflation, yes, less for more, and that is what's going on. You know, chicken broth, 99 cents was, now it's $2.49. And then talking about some may need one a week and some may need twice a week, and we need a tailored whatever. But if we go in the store, that price of that chicken broth is not going to change. It's going to remain there. We talked about, and I love options. So when we received this fact sheet with options on it, that's good. That's how life ought to be. We talked about fixed income. Everybody in here, income is fixed. And so, and as that gentleman said, we're talking about cleaning up, everybody clean up. And you are correct, mister. And so that 2 a week at that $35.23, yes, that would do that. I think the other thing that we need to do is encourage people to bag their trash. That's a biggie. The other piece that we need to make sure is that accountability for that pickup is done. Accountability for that pickup being done. So that means that conversations, training is going to have to be added up for the employees, for them to understand just how serious this is. And so I just have one question about that 4% that was alluded to. Will that be, and just a yes or no, will that be in addition, or on, I should say, that $35.23? That's what I want to know from somebody up there. I want somebody to come up here to that podium and answer me.
Can anyone answer that question?
Councilman, I'm sorry, I was answering a
Okay,
text on some of
the
the...
$35.23 for
Yes,
the
ma'am.
2 times a week,
Yes, ma'am.
but it was talked about the 4% increase.
Yes, ma'am.
So if our constituents are paying $35.23 for the twice a week, I want to know about that 4%, how that factors in for them. Is that on that $35.23? Or talk to me about that, please, Mr. Rayford.
It is at this point because that factor would be looked at from actually March on. But when we looked at the numbers to see what that 4% would represent, it appeared to be anywhere from 80 cents to $1 per month addition per year that would be into the overall cost aspect.
Okay, so approximately 80 cents to $1 per month.
It would be additional at that point. Yes, ma'am. On the factor per year. That's per year.
Oh, that's per year?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right, that's per year. Okay, all right. So $35.23. So I am going to, and you know what I tell you, the constituents, I think they just realized about this twice a week, or they must have heard something about an option. And so I've been inundated with, say twice a week, we need twice a week. So I guess they're willing to pay that $35.23 and that 4% there.
It will be an increase on a yearly basis. It will be. And I don't want to imply that that's the number they're going to be for the next 7 years, because it will not be. That 4% will have to be adjusted to it on a yearly basis. And then really, when we look at it, it's the cost of service that will be directed on those increases at any time.
So that 4% will be for that first year is what you're saying?
It will be, but it will be for every year, because that's the way it's set up.
All right, so it will never increase from 4%, is that what you're saying?
It will be
I'm
4%.
asking him, I don't wanna hear
I know,
from y'all.
4, it'll be 4%. It won't be anything greater than 4%, but it could be
All right.
less than 4%. Yes,
That's
ma'am.
what I want to hear.
Council member, that's your time.
Oh, yes, sir. All right.
All right, Councilmember Moak, it's Christmas. I'm gonna give you 1 minute. Go ahead.
Thank you. I know we were taking some time, like, trying to get an attorney up there. But my
2.5
last
hours.
question was, with the selection, we talked about the I-10. Will there be concessions that when they start work on the I-10 and everything, and everybody's going to be congesting all the local streets during all the I-10 work, and it's going to cause the fees and the possible miss to go straight up? Is there going to be a concession given by each parish possibly at that time to negate that? Because people will come argue that you're not collecting the fees, and then they'll go argue that, well, this is what's going on.
The fee, that's what we're trying to do, establish the fee, Councilman, and I think number one, and I think I've tried to define the fact that the 4% will be an increase every year at that point. Now, certainly, if we go to twice a week service, we still have to do some negotiations in reference to that, and that could be improved also. But I don't know that at this point, but all I can know is that the fee will be looked at 4% per year. And from based on some numbers that we ran based on the model, it showed anywhere from about.
I apologize, Mr. Fred. I wasn't asking about the 4%. I was asking about the fees and the fines that we put on them for not picking up.
Yes,
and the
I'm
problem
sorry.
with the interstate system practically shutting down. Or are we going to look at concessions for them to be able to migrate around Baton Rouge?
Hope that's your last question. Go ahead and answer that question for him, and then we go on to Councilmember Grode.
Certainly.
Council members, we have it's 6:20, and we have 86 items left on the agenda. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Certainly, that has to be a factor in regards to what may happen on the interstate. But I mean, there are other routes that can be used to be able to provide the service. In our opinion, that will be a decision that Mr. Spear and probably a committee that would look at to do that, to make that decision, whether that administrative cost should be assigned to it.
Council members, there is a motion on the floor. Again, please show Council Member Dunn Jr. abstaining. The motion on the floor is to approve the contract at twice a week at a price of $35.23 per month. The motion was made by Council Member Hurst, seconded by the chair. Is there any opposition to the motion first? Any opposition?
No, but I was wondering, should we add about the 4%?
We do have opposition. What's your
not me.
question?
No, I was just wondering, do we need to add in that communication about the 4% or no?
Well, I think that's part of the contract already, so it will be communicated in the outreach. But again, we show one person in opposition. Do we need to vote on the machine? We're gonna vote on the machines, actually. You want to vote on them separately? We're gonna take item 86 first. 87, excuse me. Let me read it for the record. Item 87 says, amending a resolution adopted on November 10, 2021, in order to adopt a new fee schedule for dumping East Baton Parish North Landfill site, providing other matters related thereto, effective January 1st, 2023.
Just a point of order. His motion is relative really just to item 88. So
Correct.
I would ask that we vote just on 88 first.
Yeah, well, we can vote on, we'll take all three of them separate. So 87, is there a motion to approve?
I think that if
All right, we'll go to 88. Is there do we have a motion to approve? We'll vote on the machine. I just want to get out of here with all items.
Vote on the machines.
We're voting on the machine. Let me read it again.
On 88.
Awarding the contract for solid waste and recycling collection, recycling process services, selective vendor BFI Waste Services, LLC, doing business as Republic Service of Baton Rouge, and authorizing the mayor president to execute the contract for a 10-year term. This is item 88. The motion on the floor is to award the contract twice a week, $35.23. Motion made by Councilmember Hurst, seconded by the chair. We're going to vote on the machines. We're on item 88.
Did you say someone objected?
Machines are open
Yeah,
on the
we're gonna
motion
vote
to
on the machine.
approve.
Vote me, yeah. Motion passes. We now go to item 87. amending the resolution 56001 adopted on November 10, 2021 in order to adopt a new fee schedule for dumping East Baton Rouge Parish North landfill site and providing for other matters related thereto effective January 1st, 2023 by Environmental Services Director. Is there anyone here wishing to speak on the item? We already had the public hearing. We'll entertain a motion. Is there a motion to approve item 87? So moved by Councilmember Banks, seconded by Councilmember Hurst. Any objections? Item 87 has been approved. We now go to item 89, awarding the contract for out-of-cart collection services to the selected vendor, Richards Disposal Incorporated, and authorizing the mayor president to execute the contract for a 10-year term by Environmental Services Director. We had the public hearing. Is there a motion to approve? Is there a motion to approve? So moved by Councilmember Hurst, seconded by Councilmember Hudson. Is there any objection? Item 89 has been approved.